Rolling.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the second episode of the Auto Discuss podcast. My name's Kason from Ignite Media,
I'm Jordan from Blue Flag Autosport.
and today we have a guest on the podcast. His name's Tyler Petty.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tyler Petty. I'm a Porsche driving coach, and I've also been in the auto service industry for several years now. So I'm happy to be here and get to discuss with Jordan and Kason.
So it's good to have you. Today we're going to be actually talking about kind of like where the future of the cars are going, like performance cars. I know we talked about this like briefly over the weekend, but kind of recap, we were kind of expressing how the big three, like I believe it was McLaren, Lamborghini, and Ferrari, and how they've just changed so much. Tyler, do you remember what you were kind of talking about whenever we were like what you had said a little about it?
I do remember coming in hard on the Porsche scene just because of some of the stuff I was talking about with our 718s going from gas powered to electric now, and how the 911 has all of them have done boost these days.
Yeah,
But also the big issue was with me is Lamborghini dropping down to make a twin turbo V8 when Mr. Lamborghini said himself all those years ago, we'll never add turbos to vehicles because if you have to add turbos to make power, you just don't know how to build a great naturally aspirated engine. And now there's a twin turbo V8 Lamborghini that's kind of hopping on the scene and making a lot of waves.
yeah. And I had said like I had brought up the fact that it's crazy because we've started losing a lot of our V12s unless they're in just absolutely insane like track vehicles, kind of like I believe it's the uh, Aston Martin Valkyrie, stuff like that. But like even Ferrari has kind of lost their touch with like going to the twin turbo V6. What were you gonna say, Jordan?
As I said, like the Wire R as well, things like that.
Yeah, the Huayra R. I'm surprised the Huayra is actually even still around, really.
That car's been
With how
around
much
a
hate
minute
that
now.
got. Yeah, with how much hate that got when it came out. But like those are just the ones that are so. I guess your everyday people don't really hear about these cars. All they hear about is Ferrari, Lamborghini, and McLaren. And McLaren's never really had a V12, but like to see Ferrari and Lamborghini both losing touch with that, it's kind of sad to see.
McLaren is making a twin turbo V6 now in the Artura, so I mean, they aren't even running their V8s in some of their cars.
Oh, really? I didn't even know they had a. I didn't know
However,
there was a V6.
I will give McLaren props because they are building a V10 hypercar right now. It's called the Solus GT for some Gran Turismo players like myself and Kason. It's actually based on the McLaren Vision Gran Turismo car. They pretty much decided we're going to produce it and we're going to slap a V10 in the back of it. And it was tested at Goodwood this year. I got to watch Goodwood on YouTube, and it was really cool to see that car, show off in its like pre-production prototype form. Minus the fact the headlight was out. It had one headlight.
It's that
um,
McLaren build quality.
exactly.
Well, is that also are they gonna go the hybrid route like some of these really high end race cars and hybrid cars are going, or are they actually just gonna keep a big V10 in it and call it a day?
To my understanding, there's no hybridization whatsoever. It is straight V10 power to the ground.
See,
But I could be
that's
wrong on
another
that.
thing. That's another thing is how they're all jumping to hybridization, which I understand, for the ones like, for how we're going as like with the economy and everything. But like, man, it just really sucks how everything's hybridized now. Like,
Yeah, we're really losing out on the raw, mechanical experience. I mean, as
yeah,
a DCT owner, I mean, it sucks to see manuals going away, and of course that's a big one. But the
yeah,
hybridization of everything is while it brings us such powerful hypercars. I mean, just look at just a few years ago, the 918, the P1, and the LaFerrari. I mean, that was, what I feel like was the beginning of hybridization in performance cars. Hybrids have been around a very long time now, but you know, I also like to think that hybridization has its benefits, but I think for people like us three who prefer a more raw experience, I think all of us can, say we all love a good rear wheel drive, naturally aspirated car that can throw it down a little bit. contrary to what I actually drive. But
And
um,
I and I'll never complain about hybridization when it comes to being performance based because not that they need the plug, but the Grand Tour episode where they did discuss those three cars, you got to see that they weren't about being efficient in anything. They were about being as quick to 100 miles an hour as like anything could ever be. So yeah, I mean, I appreciate hybridization when it comes to the performance side of it, but when it comes to like, hey, can I get 50 miles to the gallon? Like, ugh, is that
lame.
even
Yeah,
necessary?
yeah, and it's not only that, it's like also the weight. You're having to find other ways to save weight by adding the extra batteries and stuff, onto the car,
Right.
finding a way to distribute that, and that just I feel like takes away the ability to have a more, like Jordan was saying, a raw feeling, and I I of all people love a raw feeling, you know what I mean? So I pause. So when you have to find new ways to distribute that weight, and like you saying, all they're really seeking is finding a way to get to 100 as quickly as possible. It's like, but that's also where we're going, is everything is as how fast can it go in a straight line.
Right.
Everything's switching to that now. All the electric vehicles, none of them are, like you and I were saying, none of them are a broad option of trying to get it to where you have a street capable, you have a drag capable, you have road course capable, off road. It's all 0 to 60. What's the best 0 to 60? And that's it. That's all they're good for. And I
Yeah.
hate to see that. If we have to switch to electric cars, there has to be a more broad spectrum to be able to pick from than just who's got the fastest 0 to 60 time.
Right, I agree. I mean, that's just a car community in general nowadays, though. I mean, everything's got to make 1,000 horsepower. Everything's gonna be sub 2 seconds, 0 to 60. When there's no love for dynamics anymore. There's not love for my preferred style of car. I've learned as I've gotten older and I've built a fairly quick street car. I prefer a low power, lightweight, simple, dynamic car. And automakers of today, I mean, even some of the cars that were built 20 years ago that were cracking in at just under 3,000 pounds are now in the 4,000 pound. I mean, the Mustang, I mean, in particular, I mean, it's a heavy car now. I think the new Nissan Z also clocked in around that 4,000 pound mark. I can't remember exactly if it's like I know it's
Um,
in the higher threes. I know y'all know better about that than I do, but
Let me double check. I think it was not. Hold on one second.
It would. I think it'd be tough to say it's 4,000 pounds because I know our newest 911s are clocking at like 3,800 pounds.
yeah, they're heavy now for
The
They
curb
are, but they are bigger than the Z is, and
that is
the
like
true.
so
curb
I can
weight.
see the Z being over 4,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, the curb weight for the new Z, and I don't know what exactly is making it add or gain this amount of weight, but it's 3,400 to 3,700. So I don't
Right.
know. There's not. I guess the automatic
That
transmission.
big automatic, that
Yeah,
9.
Yeah,
that,
that's
yeah,
a
that is
heavy
true. Adds
heavy trans.
another 200-ish pounds.
Well, torque converters. I mean, have you ever helped
Yeah,
pick
that is
torque converter?
that's true.
They're heavy boys, yeah.
But at least,
They're like,
it's centered it up a little bit. It's gonna keep you. It's gonna keep you down low.
Right.
yeah.
But that's what I
No,
mean is
but
like cars are losing their lightweight, dynamic nature and are all about let's just, crank a ton of power into it and make it go fast in a straight line when, people like us who like going to Tail of the Dragon, we have, aspirations of going to track days and things like that. I mean, the cars like that weigh a metric ton and, make 600 to 700 wheel horsepower, like, it's just not a recipe for what we like to do. Like I've always said, and like I've copied many people that have said this before. 500 is kind of like where I think the usable limit of a car in dynamics is. Stuff like the GT3, for example, or the what was it? The McLaren, the little long tail. Trying to think of the top of my head. It wasn't the 675, or maybe it was the
Was it?
675.
Oh, that was the 570 was really good.
Yeah, the 570 was extremely good. Stuff like the GT4 RS, like that's a car I would love to have. It's like what I feel like is the limit of horsepower in a dynamic car. Like, nowadays, I mean, like we were saying, a lot of these car companies are like, let's, take for example the Hellcat. I mean, it's 700 horsepower, but it weighs 5,400 pounds. I mean, that's
Yeah,
not a
I mean,
recipe for cornering. That's a recipe for going straight and hopefully not spinning out in the process.
yeah, and I know Michael will defend the Hellcat, or not the Hellcat, the Charger Scat Pack wide body all day. I've seen those handle pretty well, but like they really only need all that power just to be able to even make the car move quick enough. Yeah, they're faster than your average car, even with all that weight. But to even make it considerable for like people to be impressed by it, they have to throw on that extra power to make it, beat
Worth it.
out the weight that they've stacked into such a big car.
Like,
Well,
no, you go ahead. Sorry.
the biggest thing, I mean, because so here's what I'm seeing. Like, as the three of us sit here and talk, we're missing the analog aspect.
Yeah,
Right.
That's what the three of us, and at minimum, and then that's what the millions of other people are screaming. Give us back that analog aspect. And so it's like when you sit back, like, all right, who's making those analog cars these days? It's very, very few people.
Right.
I mean, I think Honda does it a little bit with the Type R. I still think the Type R,
Lotus.
yeah, Lotus. I'm biased, but Porsche's doing it.
Right.
I mean, there's still analog feel to some of their cars. Now,
But those are
BMW,
both.
a little
I
bit.
was gonna say those are both, or even BMW. The cars that you get that are analog that like feel great to drive, they're skyrocketed in price. Like
Yeah.
you can get a Civic, maybe a Civic Si, and not be so out of pocket, or even with the Type R, but to even consider getting a Lotus, a Porsche, or a BMW, that's worth having for the nimbleness and the cornering capabilities. You're out of so much money.
And don't forget the GR86 and BRZ as well. I mean, those are probably, in my opinion,
That is true.
as much as I like to dog on how slow they are in a straight line, they are genuinely probably some of the better chassis. If you want something that can handle out of the box with no modifications required, that's one of the better cars to buy now. I mean, sure, the GR86 and stuff is struggling with the engine failures from the really cruddy application of that RTV. But
Yeah.
if you can get around that, I mean, it's a fantastic car, and I imagine it being a Toyota, even with the Subaru side of it, it'll last a while.
I still
and,
feel like though those with how I get their how new they are, they're trying to keep up with the market, but for how much power you're getting from it, it's just a well handling car. That's it.
yeah, I
And
mean,
they look
It's
sporty,
not.
but they're still so overpriced for like the car you're getting. You're not getting a lot of car for the amount of money. I feel like they should drop that down to what Hondas were worth back in like not back in the day, but like you know I feel like those cars, because of the lack of power they have and the lack of like, not just anyone's going to want this car, mostly enthusiasts are only going to be seeking out this car. It should be, I feel like, more towards the 20-ish thousand. I don't know exactly how much they're going for, but I'm pretty sure it's around 35 to 40,
I think they
if I'm not
start at
mistaken.
like 33. Let me look.
Hmm.
Right. Well, and that's the thing. We talk. Oh yeah, it's slow. Seeing it side by side versus the newest, so take the Subaru BRZ and put it right next to the newest WRX. There is videos of very respected people doing like the L shape race where you run a quarter mile, you make the big turn, you bring it back the quarter mile, so you're
Yeah.
testing. It outperforms the WRX,
Oh,
and
yeah,
it
yeah.
has a ton. But even acceleration wise, like it really isn't like the first generation was dog water slow, like absolutely. This one, I still feel like, I mean, I think on paper we see it. I think we see a 2, and we're like, oh, that's slow. It's only got 200 something, but you hop in it, and I mean, it's gonna be quick.
Yeah, yeah.
And
I'm not dogging on it because I'm thinking it's not worth it, because I'm not saying it's not worth it. Like the power's crap. Like I'd want a more powerful car. I'm saying it should be less for how much less it appeals to everyone and only the enthusiasts. I think it's an awesome car. Even like it's got
Yeah.
the right amount of power for the what it's made to do, you know?
Yeah,
I wasn't shitting on the power at all.
yeah. So just to answer the question from earlier about the price, it does start at 28.4.
Oh.
Yeah, it's really affordable actually.
Yeah, okay.
That's cheaper
You
than a
get
GTI.
yeah, you get a 1-year-old old one, and then you gut it, and you have yourself a track monster.
That's a track
Like,
rat right there.
yeah,
Maybe I'm just thinking of the fact that you can get on Marketplace and look them up, and they're still like going for the high teens, low 20s, like used.
Oh,
Even
the
the
older
first gen
ones.
ones. I'm
Yeah.
like, dude, they don't ever drop. That's the problem. Maybe that's what I'm thinking of. It's just none of like they don't ever get more affordable.
I mean, they have quite the
and that's
following.
yeah, and that's what we've seen. Like these like cars that were just like the secondhand ones nowadays. I mean, you got your Z's, you have your older Volkswagens, you have your older Hondas. Like they're holding value because people are like, oh, they're not really making them like they were. I mean, 370s, like you see them all over the place price
Yeah.
wise, and people are still fetching good money for them. And you're like,
Oh, yeah.
oh, okay, yeah, 20,000. Are you sure, man? Like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, the last of the analog era cars, like you were saying, like for example, even like I don't know if y'all saw earlier this week a Mark IV Golf R32 sold for $77,000.
Wow. How many miles did it? Was it like
I, I
pretty fresh
I think
from the
it had
factory?
under 20. I don't know for sure, under 20,000.
But was it on Bring a Trailer?
I think it was on Cars and Bids. I could be wrong. It was either on
Okay.
Bring a Trailer or Cars and Bids, one of the two.
Well, Bring a Trailer brings like it's a fantasy world of where people that get like crazy low mileage cars get sold. Like I saw an '03 Tahoe with 40,000 original miles go for like $25,000. Like it's a Tahoe.
Right. Oh, that's
Like
special.
it was Bring a Trailer,
Yeah.
and so those kind of collectors who I don't know, it seems like they throw money for the fun of it on there, but because I look at 928s on there and I can't touch one.
Oh, yeah.
There's not reasonably priced 928 on Bring a Trailer.
Yeah. And that's another thing I was about to say. I mean, I feel like if we wanted to go get the most analog experiences from a rear-wheel drive sports car, I think the only times that I would recommend doing it is stuff like the FRS, the 86, the GR86, and of course, like the 90s. I mean, you had so many powerhouses from Japan in the 90s. Even like your GTST Skylines, I mean, those are well known for being fairly solid handling cars. And in the
Oh yeah.
80s, you had the 928, you had the 944, you had obviously the 911. I mean, you had all sorts of great stuff. E30, M3, even the later M3s. I mean, I feel like when it came down to like the M3, I feel like BMW didn't lose its way until the F80 came out. I know you're probably gonna hate me for saying that, Casey, because you're a prospective F80 enthusiast. Um,
No, no. I like the way they look. I mean, I would absolutely own one, but I wouldn't own one simply because it's like a insanely well performing car. Yeah, dude, that thing gained some weight, bro. Like every
right,
car you're paying more, you're getting more power, but you're also getting more weight. Like so it just evens itself right back out to what the car was before
right.
almost.
I think the last good M3 was the E92. I think, and that one's stretching it because the E46 was a much better car dynamically, but the E92 has a lot carrying for it, and that's the two extra cylinders and 85 or 8400 RPM redline.
Yeah, so yeah. The E92 is like what is it? It's got a lot of issues, but it's really nice. It's got the V8, it's got the sounds, it's got the looks. You're getting all that. The F80, it's got the looks, and it's got the better, I guess maintenance. You don't have to deal with as much, other than the crank walk or whatever it
The
was, the
crank
crank
hub, yeah.
hub, which is hit or miss. You don't always get that. E92s, they're almost pretty like common. Like it's
With
pretty
rod bearing.
often that you see, that happen. So it's like
Well,
I don't know.
y-
I'm just trying to compare the two. Like you gain and you lose. You lose the
you
sound and the V8, but you also gain a little bit more efficiency and I don't know, keeps the
you gain
looks.
performance and you lose analog.
That
Right.
is true. Yeah.
Because I mean,
Because with F80, if I'm not mistaken, was that the first generation of X Drive M cars?
no, the G80 is the first X Drive, but the
Okay.
the F80 I think was the first one to have electronic power steering. I think the E92
Yeah.
and down
And
were
Yeah.
hydraulic.
I've heard a lot about the steering being pretty
Vague.
loose in the F80s.
it's numb. You never feel a
Yeah.
thing. And that's with brakes too. The drive-by-wire brakes, the electric brakes that started happening some of these cars,
Oh man.
you lose the feel. And the Alfa Romeo was big in it, and I love the Quattrofoglio. Like the Giulia Quattrofoglio is creme de la creme Italian, sports sedan.
Yeah.
But drive-by-wire brakes, what?
Yeah,
Where's the feeling?
Yeah, you don't know how much you're pushing them things until you push them too far and then end up having the ABS kick in on you or something. You don't you're losing that touch.
Yeah.
And I even say like even my Del Sol, like yeah, it's a 97, but mine has I believe it was the power steering rack instead of the manual steering rack, and you can feel it. Like it feels very sloshy side to side. Like I could spin that wheel side to side, and it's so loose feeling. Yeah, the car turns with it, but it's only whenever I don't know how to really explain it. I just know that just by jumping that little bit from the manual to the power steering rack in such a light car, you lose so much of that feeling. And then I can see how it's happening with those where even though they're heavier cars, they're dropping that more uh, analog styling and going towards the wire stuff, and it just takes away every little bit of feeling you get out of anything.
Right. I mean, I had this, my car currently has my second car I've ever owned. My first one had hydraulic power steering. This one has
Yeah.
electric. So it's so different because, like, well, obviously the platforms are entirely yin and yang to each other, but like the electric steering is a lot more like less feedback. You don't get as much road feel. There's not like it's not very weighty. I mean, it's one of those things where you feel like you're playing on a sim, and that's what I've never liked electric power steering. I'm looking to get into a project car the next year and a half, 2 years, and I honestly kind of want to have a manual steering rack. No power assistance whatsoever. Just to get that road feel that I want, that just perfect experience, this raw, unfiltered experience. And that's another thing, like you were saying about the drive-by-wire brakes. I mean, where's the feedback going to be from that? Like, you're going to stomp the brakes, like you said. You're not going to know if your brakes are cooked. Like, you go to the Dragon. I mean, all three of us have experienced brake fade on the Dragon before, I'm sure. It's terrifying. And you can feel your brakes become heavy, stiff, not wanting to move. Like, how are you going to feel that in something like a Quadrifoglio, or I think even the G80 M3s are also electric, or brake by wire. How are you going to know when your brakes are too hot?
Have you experienced anything like that, Tyler? Like you driven anything like that where it's got uh the brake by wire?
I have not personally, because I have driven a Taycan, and so the Taycan is obviously everything is kind of by wire, fully electric, and obviously you don't feel as much in the brake pedal, in my opinion. You feel it in the acceleration pedal.
Yeah.
But all of our Porsches are still very analog when it comes to like our 911s, our Caymans, the stuff that I work in more so than anything. But all those are hydraulic as far as brakes and things like that, because we have felt fade in the Cayman S's on the circuit before, and it's also not very fun because we have a lot of 90-degree turns with guardrails 6 feet off. But I did feel it in the Taycan, and so the biggest thing for me, the hardest thing to judge for me in the Taycan with the drive-by-wire stuff was really acceleration. Because we have the GTS and the Turbo S Taycan, so like you're talking 616 horsepower, 3 electric motors. So like you think, oh, I'm just giving you a little bit of gas, you're running 80, like oh boom, like it's there.
Right.
And so there's when you have no feeling, you still can't even teach your mind to tell you, hey, this is how much input this that I'm giving, this is what I'm expecting, because the drive-by-wire is different. And then if whatever mode you're in is going to tell you how much of it's going to give you like that little bit of delay, I guess you want to say, like a delay response.
Yeah.
But no, I'm eager to drive a drive-by-wire like braking car where I'm really like working it and seeing what that feels like, because like our Taycans have such crazy brakes. It takes so much to make them start hurting.
Yeah.
A Quadrifoglio, I would like to try it because I know there's a way to make them to get it to that boiling point where you're like, all right, what are you going to give me now besides just me barreling toward the wall at a lot faster speed than I want to be barreling toward it.
Right.
So,
Yeah. I was gonna say, I now that I think about it, I think my mom's Toyota Camry might have brake-by-wire, the 2018, if I'm not mistaken. In I'll have to double check. The only reason why I think this is because when you're backing up, like I'm not thinking about the sensors. I'm thinking about like when I'm backing into the garage, uh, I'll be on the brakes and it will still be moving. I'll like give it a little more. I can't tell how much brake I'm giving it, and that's why when I'm backing in, the sensor will freak out and slam the brakes on me, thinking I'm going too fast. And I'm like, I'm trying to stop. I just don't know where the limit is. Like, where am I at? Like when it comes to pedal, like how close I am to just stopping the car when I want it to roll that little bit. You know what I mean? It. I I've kind of felt it in that sense and lost that touch. What is that?
Someone microwaving something?
I think a garage door might have opened, but
Oh.
yeah, no. Anyways, that's kind of if I'm not mistaken, that might be one spot where I felt it before. But other than that, I've never boiled my mom's brakes. So.
Question is, what's the opinion on digital gauge clusters? Because that's one thing I actually like. Like when it comes to modern cars.
Hated it, and then I've started to love it, but I like the mix. Give me
Oh.
like digital speedo to the right, give me digital this to the right, give me that analog tack depending on the vehicle.
Like the 911,
Like,
how that's still doing it.
yes, our 911s, I hate to always, flow back to Porsche. Our tacks that are right there in the middle are analog and they are amazing and they're great, but then we have a digital speedometer over to the left, and then we have all of our like tire pressure sensors, G-force monitors, everything else is on that right side. And then it's so beautiful because you can actually make it like a simplistic mode where all it shows you is that tachometer and a digital speed directly under that tachometer, and it has like a Porsche logo on both sides, and you're like, okay,
Yeah.
cool. Now I'm focused on one thing. Go
Right.
fast.
Just send that.
Yeah,
But digital gauges are cool, especially for the new Mustang, where you can like go back and do like the Fox body style,
Right.
and like be able to do
oh
like
yeah, that's really
that's
cool actually.
sick.
So like being able to change themes and stuff, yeah, that's cool. Like in Ron's Audi, that's a pretty cool feature. Being able to like for it to swap out how it appears whenever you switch modes from like eco to performance or whatever mode you're in. Um, I both my cars are analog, so I'm not. That's the only time I ever get to experience it is when I'm in one of y'all's more updated cars. But
I cheaped
I don't know.
out.
It just depends. It just depends on how it reacts. If it's a very responsive digital cluster, like it can keep up. Like I hate whenever you're seeing an acceleration video and the numbers as they're appearing. Sometimes whenever you have the heads up kind of thing, they're just not keeping up with how fast you're going. It's like kind of stuttering along the way.
We're
It has
skipping
to be
numbers.
yeah, it has to be responsive and like kind of I don't know, just give like good feedback. But also I know that some analog ones can't keep up. Like in the LFA, I think they had to go to a digital one, right? Because their
Yep.
analog one wouldn't keep up with how fast it revved up and all that.
just the
Yep.
digital tack, right?
I think the entire cluster is digital on those.
Okay. Well, Kason, you complain about that, but how are you going to show every single number from 0 to 60
No. I'm
in a
saying
car
like
that goes 2.5 seconds to 60 without
no. I'm
showing
not talking.
word?
I'm not listen. I'm not talking every single car. All right. I'm saying like some cars will straight up like do huge skips in the numbers, and that just kind of takes away from the like looks, Whereas some cars you'll see it like maybe skip one number every 3 or 4 numbers, and that's not bad. I that's all right, Like yeah, I know you can't show every single number, but when it just stops and like skips every 5 numbers you go past, that just gets old. I'm like, bro, I don't like the way that looks. That's just my personal preference.
The
So.
C7 vet. That's a bad
Mhm.
one about that. Every single vid I've ever seen of a C7 when they're accelerating, it's like 60, 68, 77.
Well,
It
like
just
Yeah.
when the
huge
Hellcat
skips.
first came out, pretty sure those were doing that too. And I was like,
Mhm.
dude, those are not. That's stuff I can't stand to look at. I want to see my numbers rising. I want to know how illegal I'm about to be going.
How bad my prison sentence is about to be.
Accurately. How accurate this ticket's about to be.
Yeah, but like under full throttle, that's so tough to do. But yeah, I'm with you. I feel it. I do, but that's why the the digital speedo, like watching it bend up or bend down as you get closer to using the whole thing, is such a good look. And so keep it as long as we can.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did have a question for you guys. What do you guys think about like so was it the Supra is going for like $90,000, right?
No, it's not.
Is it just marked up
Yeah.
that high? Okay,
The
that's what I
Supra,
thought. Okay.
the Supra, the 4-cylinder Supra starts at 45, and I believe the 6-cylinder. I'm still on Toyota's site when we looked up the GR86 earlier. The 3-liter
Yeah.
starts at 54. So
Okay.
the ones
But
you're probably
is it
seeing, huh?
is it available? Is it available to buy at $54,000?
Unless you got an awesome dealership that's willing to hook you up, nope.
So why like what I'm trying to ask is like even the Z, like do you think they're worth the like obviously they're not worth that money, but like how do we get past this whole markup shit? Like that is the most ridiculous thing to see like how high they're hiking up prices. It's not even like a couple grand. It's 40, 50 grand sometimes. Like it's ridiculous.
Well, yeah. Well, there was a Nismo that I was scrolling through online that made a story that it was the new Nismo Z $154,000. I want
Yeah.
to get fact checked, and I
No.
want to hear that's wrong, but I think that was the case. I'm going to buy a 2019 GTR Nismo with 5,000 miles on it if I'm going to spend 150 grand.
I agree.
Like, are you kidding me?
And
Yeah.
I think the only way that we'll ever see the markup trend end is for the manufacturers themselves to take action against it. Like manufacturers introduce, parts of the paperwork that involves becoming a car dealer. Because, these are like, think like, I guess the best, closest business model would be Chick-fil-A. Some of them are owned by individual operators. They're not owned by corporate. The majority, if not all car dealerships are that same way. They're owned by operators, not by Ford or by Volkswagen or by Porsche. It's a guy that's just like, I'm going to start this dealership, and gets the go ahead from approval from corporate to be like, okay, you can do that. I think the
Well,
only
if I'm not mistaken, I think Dodge is doing their best to battle that with the Last Call edition, like the
Yeah.
Hellcats and stuff.
they're trying.
Like I think, yeah, but this will be the test on how well this works because Ford tried to do it with the GT and lost the lawsuit even after the guy, even after he signed the contract saying, "Oh no, I won't sell it in 2 years, or you can take me to court."
Oh, you're
Ford
talking
did,
about John
and
Cena.
they lost. Yeah,
Yep.
but they lost. They got that man to write sign a contract saying that if he was to sell it in 2 years, like he couldn't do that. And then Ford goes and sues him. Like they kept their word, good for them, and they lose. So then you're basically teaching the public and the dealers and everybody else that like the corporation has no control
Yeah.
Right.
over taking anyone.
Right. I mean, like I said, I mean, it's going to take some pretty stringent, cases and attempts to actually silence it from the manufacturer themselves. Try to put harsh penalties on it, like even to the point of revoking that dealership's ability to sell that certain brand's cars. Like, for example, like if the Viper were to somehow mysteriously come back from the dead again, and our local Dodge dealership, which I'm not going to name, obviously, it was like, okay, MSRP 70 grand, we're going to sell it for 170. And Dodge is like, okay, you can't sell Dodges anymore. Like, I feel like that's probably well, that sounds extreme. I feel like that's really the only way that they'll be able to scare these operators. They're like, heck yeah, we're selling C8 Z06s for $300,000, or we're selling 992 GT3s for 400, or we're selling Nismo Z's for 150. I feel like that's the only way that they'll be able to shut it down is by being like, all right, y'all, we're gonna stop letting you sell our cars altogether if you keep doing this. And I know Ford also tried it with the Bronco, and they failed horribly. They tried to stop it with the Bronco because the Bronco was such a hot seller. Out of all cars, that's really surprised me it's getting marked up. The Rav4 Prime, which is a hybrid Rav4, is getting marked up. I think like 10 to 15 grand over sticker because it's such a popular, in demand hybrid crossover. They say it's harder to get on the wait list for a Rav4 Prime right now than it is to get on the wait list for a GT3. Like, that's how crazy it is. But, it's just, I feel like they have to be strict and harsh with these dealer networks in order to stop it. But I think manufacturers know that there's a lot of risk with that too, because if they start losing dealers left and right, they're not going to be getting any money either.
But it doesn't matter because they're not getting money regardless if the prices are so hiked up, no one's going to buy them. That's why the Zs are having such an issue. Like, they're so hiked up, no one wants to buy them. When they do, they're so disappointed, like, in how much money they spent for the car. Like, yeah, it's a fun car, but it's not worth, like, talking about the regular Z, not the Nismo, but like, it's not worth 70 grand. It's you have so many other options for that car for that kind of money. So when they stop, when people are getting disappointed and putting bad words out there, it's regardless, it's eliminating the income for the actual brand itself. And I don't know, it's going to kill off a lot of brands like Nissan, who's struggling already from the whole issue with the CVTs that were like going out, all that.
Their previous CEO.
Yeah, the previous CEO. I mean, this is like the last straw, and dealers are ruining it for them. Like, dealers are gonna end up killing Nissan off if they don't chill.
Right.
Yeah, but Nissan manufacturing is still getting money up front. Once that dealer purchases that car from the manufacturer, they're still getting paid sometime. Now, if they don't sell it fast enough because it's like a 30, I'm sure it's like a 30-day pay type of situation.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like, then that's when you're going to start seeing that markup come down, is when all those dealers are starting to have to kind of come clean on paying that manufacturer. And like, well, this car's still sitting on my lot. Now I got to come down with it. And
yeah,
I just saw a dealership in Alabama. They do the custom trucks, the TCC Customs or whatever whatever they're called. It's out of Alabama. They dropped an F-150 they lifted and did all $15,000 overnight. They decided to drop the price 15 grand. Why? Because now it's time to pay the piper and time to pay everybody that worked on the truck to get it lifted, to put the wheels and tires on, all that stuff you wrote on the 30-day note. Oh, now it's time to pay for it. So yeah, we're gonna drop the price 15 grand, make it a little bit more reasonable, a little bit more normal. So maybe we'll move it in 2 weeks now. But new car prices and inventory moving has slowed down substantially, just in general.
Right.
So,
and I think honestly, when it comes down to car prices, that I got really lucky. I bought my car right before the interest rates exploded and all that kind of stuff. Granted, I still got a pretty bad interest rate, but that's just because I didn't have a lot of credit to speak of at the time.
yeah.
But like, that also isn't really helping manufacturers' cases right now too, because they're having to not only deal with these very stingy dealerships being like, hey, we're going to take this car that's listed at 50 and charge 90 for it. But also, that car is going to come out to over 100 at the end of the loan because of the interest rates. And no one in their right mind is going to be like, I'm going to buy this Nissan with no options, and it's going to cost as much as a house after markup, interest, tax and tag, like all that kind of stuff. So it's just like that. It's really just not a good time to really deal with new cars right now. Again, that's why a lot of these more older cars, as we've been talking about earlier, I mean, these older analog cars are holding their value because no one in their right mind is walking into a dealership right now getting ready to throw down the money to get a brand new one.
Yeah, I was going to mention that. That's exactly why it's caused the used car market to rise, because more people are seeking those out than buying a brand new one and wasting their time with that.
Right. I mean, especially if it's an already existing car that's been on the market for a couple of years. Like, for example, the new S4s. like they're holding their value right now because it makes more sense to, go buy one used than just go buy one new because the cars are almost the same. They haven't changed since 2017 in terms of the powertrain. So I mean, like the interior is mostly the same. Like, sure, they have the lighting changes, but I mean, you're not getting anything extra other than a bigger center screen and a revised digital cockpit screen and maybe some lighting than you would be by just saving, 10, 15 grand and go getting you a 2017 S4. So I mean, it just doesn't make any sense in my head, and I mean, I'm sure the majority of people feel the same way, to go and spend 60 to 70 grand right now on a brand new Supra, especially if you're opting for the automatic, when you can save a little bit of money and buy a 2017 for like 45, or not 2017, 2019, 2020 model for for like 45.
Yeah. Hey, I have a real quick. The new S4, what exactly is in those? Is it turbocharged now, or
It is. They pretty much took the block from the 3-liter supercharged motor, took the blower off, and then slapped a turbo on it, and like did a couple. They reworked it a tiny bit. No more manual, no more DCT. It's a ZF 8-speed all the way around. The only way you can get the current chassis, A4, S4, all that kind of stuff in a manual, is to get an A4, and I think that's been discontinued as well now. So I mean, there's a couple model years you can get the A4, which has like just a longitudinal version of my engine in it with a manual in this big body sedan with quattro, which is cool. But you know, but the S4 they've gone back to turbocharging, like the B5 was.
yeah, that's pretty crazy. I didn't know they still, or not still, but like they even offered that model with the manual at all. That you were talking about, because I don't know, just when I think of newer Audi, like new-ish Audi, I only think of
DCT or ZF.
Yeah, I don't think of them having a manual option at all. So I
That's
don't
one
know.
of the last
But,
cars.
They were the last of the big three of Germany to keep the manual as long as they did.
Yeah, because I mean, outside of BMW now, they're bringing them back, but
Yeah, but there was a time. Wasn't there a time when BMW didn't make it because like I don't because I mean Mercedes has been gone since what
yeah,
2012.
yeah, if that. I don't think I've seen many AMG products since the '90s that had manuals in them.
I think I'm trying to like the M156 car did not, but I think the car before the M156 cars, I think there was a couple of manual options then,
Yeah,
which would have been up to but pre 2010
yeah.
Mercedes. Because I drove a whatever the chassis is that the M156 C63 was, whatever
Mhm.
that chassis is, I drove a manual C250.
Yeah, I did after I said that. I've seen some SLK 320s, I think they were, with
Yes.
manuals.
But then you had that 5-speed slush box,
Oh,
and then the 7-speed
was it Mtronic?
Mtronic,
I think
which
so.
the launch control and that's pretty badass. Um, very very cool. So, but yeah, I mean, so who knows when the last actual Mercedes and went out as far as manual goes? Because I know none of that next generation of C300s and stuff after the M156 cars. I know none of those had manuals. Like you couldn't get a
Yeah.
C250 manual, but you could get a C430 AMG, and that was real. And I did not like that because that's a bigger complaint with making C43 AMGs and C63 AMGs. But that can be a whole boat of a complaint in and of itself.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I feel like,
Exclusivity. AMG is exclusivity. Why make it cheaper?
but it's like BMW did the same thing. They slapped an M badge on like the
240i.
40i models,
yeah,
Hate
yeah,
it.
and they were trying to do like what Audi's done for years now. I mean, they the M240i and the M340i and the C43. They all compete on the level of the S4. So they're sitting there like, okay, we've got a 340i and a like a C350 or whatever.
43. C43.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
So
yeah.
before those two existed, and then you've got an S4. So you're like thinking, oh, obviously the S4 is the sporty model because it's got S in its name because that's Audi's sport division. We're going to leave the other two alone because they're obviously not the sport models. So they were just like, you know what? Why don't we slap an M badge on a 340i, and it's the same thing as before, same formula. And then AMG was like, okay, well, why don't we just slap an AMG badge on a regular C class and turn the power up a little bit.
Really, we had that because you could get, like, remember, you had the 328 and the 335.
Yeah.
Well, you get the 335i with the M Sport package,
Right.
but it wasn't. You weren't putting an M on the outside of that car.
Right.
See,
You were not up badging it.
they're doing it for the people that were gonna, up badge their cars. But I feel like what they should have done in order to, not get it to people, like people think that, oh yeah, I have an M car, and then they pull out like that. They should have put like a lowercase M badge instead. So
Well,
just to
and
make
I've
sure you
never
can differentiate.
and I've never judged Audi until you put it that way. So now screw all the S. I'm just kidding. Like,
Well,
screw
no,
S
no,
models.
no.
No, either RS or bust, right? No, because I love Michael's supercharged S5. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
no.
Like-
See, that's what I'm saying is like Audi, you have the A, you have the S, and then you have the RS. Those are three very different badges. You don't have 335 and then, or like, you don't have. What I'm trying to say is
That's applicable to that year: 335 and then 335 M Sport and then M3.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. It was like you already had the competitor to the S. Adding the M just kind of makes it a rice at that point.
Right. And, there's so many people who have M3s or M4s or C63s that are pretty annoyed about it now. I mean, I've seen so many people, even on like, if you go on TikTok, I mean, obviously, the car content of TikTok is so toxic and divisive on its own right. But 9 times out of 10, if I see like inter-brand squabbles, like BMW versus BMW, it's M3 and M4 guys being like, your M340 or M440 ain't crap. And, we have the real M cars. I got the fake ones. There was one video I saw recently. It was a car meet this dude went to, and it was an M exclusive meet. And he pulled up in an M240i.
And he's like, it looks the same. But
Yeah.
he did
And then go pull the tape on the back of it at the end of the video, and it says 240i on the back.
But look, you saw how the brakes were the same. You saw how all this other stuff was so much the same. That's on BMW for doing that.
Right.
Yeah, no, it is. It is. It was a privilege to own an M car until everyone could get their hands on it.
And that's not to discredit those cars, because obviously,
no, they're good cars. They could
Yeah.
have chose a way different. They could have done something better than slapping an M badge on a mid-range performance car, not the high performance car.
Right.
I
It
M
mean-
belong for the highs. They should have done like I don't know. They should have done something. Maybe just added the 3 stripes, that the red, white, and blue next to the number instead of an M. That could have at least been something different instead of the M badge.
or just you're making the M Sport naming more obvious. Because, I mean, how often do you see a E90 E2 or E90 335i with the M Sport package proudly say it's an M Sport car without being in the know and being able to recognize, hey, that car's got some M Sport stuffs on it? Like, like I would, if it were me, I would have done the 340i M Sport and it be in the name of the car, and the badge be on the back of the whole 9.
Yeah. Well, and like, okay, but here's my thing. Because I haven't studied them enough. Like, there's so many car brands out there to keep up with. Like, I'm not a guru in the new stuff. As far as these, when it comes to the 340i and the M3, where is your differentiate? Because you mod both, they're both making dumb amounts of power. So
Right.
where is BMW actually providing that exclusivity? Is it suspension?
You're
Suspension
right.
Where-
and the motor.
Really not actually.
Like, I mean, I'm like, I really want to know. Where are they providing that for you?
So the 340i in particular, the M340i, I mean, you get more aggressive suspension tuning, obviously. I think the M3 has an exclusive suspension setup to the 340i, but you also get a second turbo. I mean, you get the S58, which is just this ridiculous engine. I mean, I'm sure y'all have seen plenty of videos of people just putting a downpipe and a tune on an S58, and they're making almost 700 wheel, which is ridiculous. And I mean, B58 could never, but B58s are in their own right really good. And I think that also works to the M3's deficit because when you're all right, when you're a BMW fan, you're looking at it and you're like, I could save $20,000 or $30,000 and get an M340i, get almost the same interior. Sure, you don't get the nice bucket seats the M3 and M4 have now. Especially if you don't care about the manual, you don't have to worry about it because you get almost the same ZF8 speed that's in the M3. You get the same drivetrain options, rear or X-drive, and you get an engine that is almost as capable as the S58. You just have to upgrade the turbo on the B58 to get to S58 numbers. So, I mean, I get it. I mean, it's actually a really hard decision to make. I mean, especially if you're just in the market to buy a performance ready BMW. I mean, you're looking at all these and you're like, dude, it's really not that much more worth it unless you just really want a manual. That's like the only way I could justify it. Like, to be like, that's why you should absolutely get the M3. But I get what you mean. It's just like the S4 and the RS5 because they don't sell the RS4 here. It's the same thing. I sit there and I'm like, dude, I could upgrade to a TTE 810 on the S4 and make more power than an RS5 can on its stock turbos, and it costs twice as much to upgrade the turbos on the new RS5.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you could take this kind of argument, by the way, and almost put it towards this style of argument towards like F and F Sport, with Lexus. Yeah,
Yes.
with F. With the F, the thing is, people will buy an F Sport and think they have just bought the biggest, baddest thing ever. And it's like, no. You're missing the point. You see the small word next to the F? You didn't get the big dog. Yes, you do get, at least they are making it to where, depending on which one you get, you will only get the V8 if you get an F. But like, who says F Sport and then I don't know. It's just, that is such a confusing way to like brand your car, like your performance.
Because F Sport was an afterthought.
Right.
You had ISF back in 09.
Yeah.
Okay. Before F Sport was a thing. And then it was like, oh, hold on. Mercedes or BMW is doing these little M Sport cars. They're putting some wheels on them and some graphics inside, and people are paying $5,000 and $10,000 more. Yeah, let's do it. So like, but then it did turn into like your IS350 F Sports. We had some in the shop I worked at. They came with Brembos for a 300 horsepower 6-cylinder sedan. Came with Brembos, and these people are like, why is my brake job $500 for front brakes? Well, that F Sport badge, but it's not fast. I know, but you opted to have those 19-inch wheels and the low profile tires, and and it's like, so people are like, oh wow, like I can't, what is this even getting me besides higher maintenance?
Right.
And the fact that they looked better. They do. They look better. But yeah, that's my big knock. Like, but F Sport almost sounds better than just F.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Was like, by saying
Sport
it's
and
almost
M,
like
an AMG Sport or whatever, and then what was AMG one? They had like,
I know.
there was C300s that had like was it just the AMG appearance package? Basically, is how
Something like
Mercedes
they
played
didn't
it.
have a badge for it though, did they?
Right.
And just how BMW used to do with the M Sport cars. Like even some of the other brands, like Audi has the S line package on some cars. There's been a handful of A3 VR6s I've looked at, and they are like they've got an S badge on the front. And I'm like, we didn't get the S3 and RS3 of that generation. Why does it have an S badge on it? Because all it's got is a VR6, which is cool. Don't get me wrong. Best V6 ever made. Hot take. I'm probably going to get shunned by both of these guys since they both drive VQs at the end of this episode. But at the same time, Volkswagen does it too, and it hurts my heart because so many people buy Jetta R lines, which have a 1.4 liter engine, and I'm like, dude, I got an R product, like you're driving a Golf R, and I'm like, I hate to break it to you, but you bought a Jetta with an appearance package.
Mm-hmm.
I think the only brands that have gotten the up badging from the factory right is BMW and Mercedes. And even then, it's not very loved.
Because at least you're getting something with that up badge. Like it can be a pretty impressive car.
capable
Whereas,
car.
like Ford also did it when I was looking at Fiesta ST.
The
You can
ST
find
line.
Fiesta ST or the ST line, and it's like, what? And what was it? Ron was telling us about the Elantra GTs.
Yep, the
or
N line.
Elantra inlines.
Yep.
And
And they even
how
have
they're
GT lines.
Yes,
and
Kia.
how
Yeah,
they're
Kia has a
actually
GT line. Yeah.
good or something like that. They're actually good.
Well,
The thing is
they
like,
made they
it-
weren't they didn't handle well.
but you really don't get much of an added benefit, like with any
Okay.
of those kind of packages. I mean, like it to me, the majority of them, with the exception of the M340i and the C43, is you get like, oh, it looks sportier now. I blacked out some of the accents. You know, here's some seats that look a little bit like the performance model seats. Like I think even the Elantra GTN lines, I think their seats were not remotely the same as the Veloster N seats or the Elantra N seats, but they were like similar. But
Well,
you know,
I put
like
you this, you had the Elantra N, right? It had sport tune suspension, it had the dampers, it had all that stuff, right?
right,
And it made 276 horsepower. Quick. Then you
Right.
had the Sonata, which is the full size Sonata N line, and it had the 2.5 liter six cylinder, turbo six cylinder that came out of the Stinger GT line, basically. Like
And
it
the
was so like
four-cylinder?
really, yeah, no, the 2.5 four cylinder, yes, made over 300 horsepower. But why it wasn't good? It didn't have the electric limited slip front differential to put the power down. So it
Right.
literally would just boil the tires through the first three gears. And it didn't handle nearly the same as the Elantra N, but these guys are getting it like, oh my god, look at all this power it has. It's it's the best N out there. And I'm like, you're going to understeer into a corner at 35 miles an hour, and you're going to watch the Veloster and Elantra kind of roll by you through the first corner, and then maybe you catch it on the straight if you're able to keep up long enough to hold with them.
right.
But that's like they really lost anything handling aspect with the inline and GT line vehicles.
Right. And the same can be said for the S line A3s. I mean, there's not, I don't think they offer it anymore, but when they did, I like, you really didn't get much of anything other than just an appearance package with those. I mean, you didn't get, I mean, you may have gotten brakes at most, but you didn't get like the dynamics of the full body S cars, which then didn't give you the dynamics of the full body RS cars. So it's like you're buying a base model to a base model in some cars. I mean, you're buying, you know, with the S line stuff, which obviously they don't do it anymore. To my understanding, at least if I were to go on Audi right now, I doubt I could find an S line car. But you know, like I feel like, you know, a lot of these packages, they did it to try to cash in on people, to you know, make them want to be like, hey, I can save some money by just getting an F Sport.
Yeah,
You
they're
know,
like, hey, look at these really performancey cars. We're selling for a lot cheaper than the actual performancey car. People are like,
Yeah.
oh, I can get a fast looking car for half the price of 2/3, what, 3/3? I don't know, 3/3.
to,
Well,
Sorry, 3/4 the price or whatever.
right.
and that begs the most important Lexus question out there right now. We have a 2022 and 2023 IS 500 F Sport with the same engine we had in our first generation ISF. So tell me, Lexus, what's next?
Right. Are we gonna get a real ISF again? Like,
We're the real limited slip differential with real chassis bracing, with real upgraded dampeners and sway bars, or are we getting something off the charts like boosted 5.0?
I better see a damn turbo in that engine bay.
I
like
need to see a
you.
turbo Yamaha built 5 liter out of ISF
Yeah, I've never even seen
with
Lexus
all-wheel drive.
do anything
That would be
other
sweet.
than with that 5.0.
I think honestly, if Lexus wants to compete against BMW, Audi, and Mercedes in this space, they need to either do a twin turbo V6 similar to what's in the Tundra, or they need to crank the V8 up to 11, give it one last send out, because you already know that within the next 10 years, I mean, we're probably not going to see another V8 Lexus after
Yeah.
the IS. I don't think they even sell a car with a V8 anymore. I feel like outside of maybe one of the bigger SUVs, it hasn't been replaced yet. Because I know even the GX now is going to be rocking the Tundra's V6. So I mean, like the IS 500, I think is one of their last V8 cars outside of the LC 500, which I can't remember is still in production or not.
Yes, yeah, it is.
So
As
I
far as I
mean,
know.
yeah. So
And you gotta think they took their flagship V8 away from the LS.
They
The
did,
big,
yes,
the LS 500 F Sport is a twin turbo V6.
and a hybrid.
Yes, you can also get the hybrid.
So I mean,
And now, I will say it's peppy. I've driven an IS, the newest LS 500 F Sport, like right off the thermal board. It's great, but have you driven an LS 460? Oh, God, like
I used to
the
want.
oh, I still do. That's the most, the generation right before the 6-cylinder came out. I mean, they get 13 miles a gallon and stuff like that, but God, that big UZ 4.6 Toyota V8 under the hood, can't beat it.
I used to want a GS 430 for a long time, or a GS 400. I have a big soft spot for the older GS cars, and obviously the first gen ISs. That era of Lexus. My grandmother had a GS 300 when I was younger. My mom experienced a 2J before I even knew what a 2J was worth. Like,
Well,
it is wild.
that GS also looks really good slammed.
Oh, I
So
love that generation. When it was the Aristo still.
yeah, they look really good slammed. So
There's not many cars I like in a stance format, but if you show me a picture of an early 2000s GS on, with some camber to it, I might be like,
drop
Like
me off in
that,
Japan.
like that one I saw at in
in
Hawaii.
Hawaii, yeah.
Dude, that one looks so good. I was like, man, that was a perfect picture.
You should
Wish
show
I had
Tyler
my
that picture.
wish I had my real camera for that.
You should show Tyler that picture because he'd probably love that picture. It was a really sweet looking GS he saw. But like I said, I feel like if Lexus wants to fight the big dogs now, I feel like with the aftermarket potential of the current gen luxury sports cars, and this is what I feel like has killed Lexus all this time, and why they haven't been able to be quote unquote in the fight, so to say. I mean, obviously when the ISF was around, it was a heavy contender because I mean, all of its competitors were also running NA V8s at the time. But as time went on, and the F80 would come out and make a ton of power with just a tune, the Audi RS cars would switch to turbo V6s. The C63 went to a turbo V8. I feel like
it was dumb power.
yeah,
570. I mean, ridiculous.
and it takes nothing to make them get close to 1,000. I
Yeah.
feel like the only way Lexus will be able to really sell cars, and again, we're playing back to what we said at the very beginning about the community today only caring about 0 to 60 times.
Yeah.
They're going to have to introduce forced induction in some way. I feel like the next gen ISF is going to have to be either a twin turbo V8, whether it be based on the 5-liter or in a new V8 platform, similar to how Mercedes went from a 6.3 to a 4-liter, or like Audi did. I mean, the 4.2 down to a 4-liter for their V8 stuff.
But yeah, a 5-liter with V mounted turbos
That'd be nuts. I mean, it's a
with
big
zero
motor.
drag.
Yeah. And they would have probably more torque than the other V8s if they stayed at the 5-liter mark because of all that extra displacement. And then obviously the only other option for me would be to go to a Turbo 6. Because I doubt Lexus, after watching how Mercedes is getting completely bulldozed for the 4-cylinder turbos in the C63 now, they're probably going to be like, they're not going to be sitting there staring at it like, that's a great idea. Because I mean, like that's set up already. I mean, they've already got platforms for it. They have a 4-cylinder turbo, which not a lot of people know about, because it kind of flew under the radar of enthusiasts. But it's a car called the IS200T. I don't know. I'm sure Tyler's heard of them, but they made them for a few years. I think they still made them all the way up until the IS200 or the last gen IS was discontinued. They may still use that motor now.
They made a GSRT.
Do what?
You could find GSs with that motor in it.
Oh, I bet that sucks. But the
Well,
IS200s, huh?
Horsepower, 200 horsepower, or whatever it made. It made really bad numbers.
Yeah, the thing that sucks about that though is they got no aftermarket support. Because I remember when I was looking into cars, I looked into IS200s because I was like, oh, dude, a Toyota built 4-cylinder turbo. This is gonna be a great platform. And I did research. There's like one company that tunes them, and you barely get anything out of it. It's like tuning a new Camaro with a 2-liter turbo. Like there's very little. There's like one company that makes parts for it, and sure you can get decent power out of the Camaro at least, unlike the Lexus. But still, it's like you got one company, whereas you go to, got to shout out my own brand. You go to a Volkswagen side of things, you've got APR, Unitronic, 034, EQT. You've got, I'm probably forgetting a bunch of other ones, IE, and the list goes on. Sneaky, like all these other companies. Like, and I feel like that helps a lot with platforms like that, and that's an issue I feel like has plagued modern Toyota and Lexus when it comes to the aftermarket side. Because even the ISF, I think you've only got like a handful of people that tune them,
You have RR Racing, as far as I know.
and that's it.
Yeah.
And that's because for some reason these bigger names aren't looking at them and being like, dude, that's a great tuning platform for some reason. And I feel like, the RCF and stuff flying under the radar, it was panned by the majority of people who drove them when they first came out because they probably were in the same press event with an F82 M4. And they got on the M4 thinking, dude, this is a very dynamic car. It's, very fun to just throw around. They get in the RCF and it's heavy and understeers everywhere. And they're just like, huh, this kind of sucks.
Now,
That
Jordan, back to that 2.0T. Doing some research because there was a GS 200T that had caught my eye one time, and I was like, "Huh, this is interesting." So I was looking around. Is that not the same 2.0T that can be found in our GLA 45 AMGs, and that can be found in our Infinity Q50s and Q60s with the 2.0Ts?
yes, the
Because it was a
Mercedes motor,
company.
or
Do what?
not Mercedes motor. I was about to say because Infinity's known for having the 2OT was like bought from Mercedes or something, and I'm
Yes.
I guess
Yes.
Mercedes got it from some place. Yeah,
Now, do you think Lexus? Because there was I don't know. There was a company that sold downpipes and like mild tunes, and there's like 3 different cars that they were showing. Like, oh, this downpipe fits this, this, and this, and I was like, that's 3 off the wall brands. And I already knew the Infiniti Mercedes relationship, but I was like, there's no. I was sitting there thinking I can't remember if Lexus was involved in that same relationship with that 2.0T.
I'm looking it up right now. Let's see.
surprised me.
Because
So-
that would be crazy.
Nope, it is actually a part of the AAR FTS. It's the AR family of 4 cylinders from Toyota, which is, I think, the same motor like family you'll find in there's like the Venza, the Highlander, the RAV4, those kind of cars, and it's just a turbocharged version of that. Which is probably why they didn't get any love. It's because it was effectively a Highlander RAV4 motor with a turbo strapped onto it.
And all the head lift because it wasn't built for boost.
Probably. But I feel like Lexus has to introduce forced induction and do it right for the a theoretical next gen ISF to stick, and to become a household name like the RS4 and the RS5 and the M3 and M4 and the C63, stuff like that. I think if they do better than a 4 cylinder in a new ISF, they'll automatically beat Mercedes. I feel like the community is going to be like, all right, you got a 6 cylinder instead of a 4, we'll take it. But obviously, I feel like if Lexus wants to win enthusiasts over and be the next big thing in performance cars, the ISF's got to have a V8. I think it's got to have a 4 liter or a 4.2 or 4.5 turbo V8.
It has to be something different. It can't be the same thing. It's just been so repetitive.
Not to say the 5 liter's a bad engine, because the 5 liter,
it's an awesome engine.
the
It
5 liter's
sounds
a
great.
monster.
Yeah, it's just that they've thrown it in every it's just been the same thing for the past who knows how many years. It's like, when are they gonna get something like? When are they gonna push harder? Like,
But here's
and,
the thing with that, though.
when they did kind of try, they did the RCF track, which was
Mhm.
cool. But I will take back. I know in our first podcast episode, I actually had said I chose that as my Lexus car. I actually take that back.
You chose it over the
that car-
LFA.
I think I will choose the LFA. So that car, the RCF track, it has the looks, it has all the bits, it has all the things to track with. It's not a good track car though. It's just still way too heavy.
They
They
slapped
tried to do
carbon
something
fiber
cool.
and a wing on it. What were they trying to do?
No, they did make it a little bit better handling wise, but it still was like, it's just that was their way of trying to pull in more enthusiasts, and it looks cool. I mean, it looks absolutely badass if you ask me,
It
but it
Gorgeous.
just,
Yeah.
it just, I don't know. Yeah, they need to do something different. They need to do something better.
And I think there's an ISF track floated around out there, like very few of them that inspired the RCF track. But then like give us the GSF track. Give us an LCF
Yeah,
I
track.
wouldn't mind
Like
seeing the IS 350 body as a track car, like that whatever chassis that is.
like
how
the
it's
F
sport. Yeah, the IS 350 F Sport.
becoming a true performance car.
That because that car looks amazing. It just needs a better powerhouse, like a better motor or something, like
so that's
something
why you
with
just
a
buy the
little more
IS5.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, just buy an IS500, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm actually looking on their site right now just to see if, for one, if the 4 cylinder is still around, and two, if the how better of a deal the V8 is. So the standard IS300, which has the Turbo 4, okay, so Turbo 4 is still around. 240 horsepower though, so it got a bump. It's $41,000. However, the all-wheel drive one makes 260. So I will say, not too bad because I mean at that point you have that's a V6. Never mind. What the heck? Why'd they put a V6 in the all-wheel drive and a 4-cylinder rear-wheel drive and it's the same number?
Real quick, yeah, no, you're right, Tyler. Actually, the IS 500 F. Wait, the IS 500 F Sport that does have the V8 though, right?
It is.
Yeah,
it's
it's
got
got
the V8.
5.0.
Yeah, I don't know why
So
I
just take
didn't.
it and be a race car.
That car looks so freaking good.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. I love it.
It just
But
they
it
don't-
definitely
they're
needs
sloppy.
something. Huh?
They're sloppy as far as handling goes.
Yeah, they need to do something better in order to. Lexus has never been about handling, as far as I'm aware. Except for
the LFA and the original
LFA.
ISF.
Well, yeah. Well, when you say the LFA, that thing was freaking. How much money did they dump into that car? It better have been about handling. God,
Shoot,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm sure they
If you're
lost
making
money.
Huh?
Sure they lost money on development of that.
Oh, from what I understand, they lost money in every single one that left the showroom.
Yeah.
Because of how much it cost. Because the LFA, they restarted the development, I think once or twice during its development. That's why it took them so long to make it. I have a book that I got when I was in second grade called Cool Concept Cars. I have 2 copies of this book in case if I can find them, I'll show it to y'all. The Ford GT was still a concept car, and that came out in 2005. But guess what was at the end of the book? The LFA concept car. It took them that long to make it that the Ford GT reached production before it, and they were in development at the same time. And I'm not talking about like a year or two. Pretty substantial gap.
Dang, Tyler, you had just graduated at that time, huh?
No, jeez, come on.
He's not that much older than us.
No. What year did the LFA come out?
LFA, I think it was a 2012 model year car.
Yeah, I was about to say 11 or 12.
Then I mean, if it was a 12 model car, I was a junior in high school. So yeah,
I was kidding. All right, I was talking about talking about him in second grade. You were probably graduating.
No, I mean, yeah.
But speaking of the LCF you brought up earlier, the LCF was actually planned, but Lexus got cold feet about it and dropped it. They almost did it.
You want to do it, but you can't. You need to make it so you don't lose a ton of money. You need to do it almost as a built to order type of deal.
Right.
But then, like, how can you have one that's like X amount of way through production? It's like when the order comes through, we can have it knocked out in 90 days. You know what I mean?
I looked it up. The 2022 Lexus LCF. Dude, it looks freaking baller. It looks like they did the same thing for the track edition, kind of to it.
Are you on the same Lexus Enthusiast article I'm on right now?
I was on Car and Driver. I'm gonna send it to y'all.
They on the Lexus Enthusiast article I found, it's probably the same rendering because it's a rendering that's supposed to look like what it would have looked like.
Well, what I looked up is a car that I'm sure someone just modified. It was an actual just Lexus
Regular LC
500 or whatever.
But
it's been modified. It's got hood vents. It's got canards. It's got a little wing kind of on the back. 471 horsepower. Yeah, but it still weighed like 4,400 freaking pounds.
So this is what this article reads here. It says rumors of an LCF started even before the production models were released, almost always paired with a twin turbo V8 application. From our understanding, prototypes for the LCF and LSF were built, only failing to win the approval of Akio Toyota due to the weight of the platform the models share.
Mm.
So Lexus was gonna do it, and they're like, these things are gonna be too heavy. Let's just not do this. And I'm like,
Yeah, I mean, looking at their competition, which is listed in the Car and Driver one, their competition was the Acura NSX, the Corvette, Jaguar F-Type SVR,
he would have been
Mercedes
fighting.
AMG GTR, and Porsche 911. Dude, that car does not stand a chance against any of those. Even the NSX. I mean, I know NSX isn't amazing, but it definitely, I think, wouldn't have. The NSX still would probably have been able to out handle that car. I feel like.
I feel like too the LCF and LSF would have probably been competing. I'm trying to think. I mean, obviously the GSF was discontinued a few years ago. The rest of the GSs, unfortunately. So I mean, the LSF would have been competing with the M5, even though it's significantly bigger, which would make it more of a competitor for a theoretical if BMW ever did an M7 series, an M7, which doesn't exist. The LCF would have been fighting the M8. Which would have been honestly a really good showdown because outside of the RS7, the R6 and R7, the M8 doesn't have a lot of competition. Well, actually, the RS6 and R7 are M5 competitors. So, I mean, the M8 has no competition right now because I don't think Mercedes even has an S-Class AMG anymore, do they?
Yeah, they have a S63 that's a 4-cylinder turbo.
Oh my gosh! No way they stuffed that in an S-Class.
They did with the electric motor.
Oh my gosh!
Real quick, just wanna point this out there. If you look at the side profile of an M8 and just cover the front bumper, is it not like a Mustang?
I can see. I kind of.
It
see where you're
literally
coming from.
looks like a Mustang if you just cover up the front bumper and headlight. It's the exact same look almost. I've always thought that. I was like, yo, I saw a picture of one and it was like you couldn't see the badge and I was like, yo, is that a Mustang? And I looked closer and I could see like what it was and I was like, oh, no way.
Well, especially with the S650 style Mustang now. Like it's got so sleek. So sleek.
Yes, it literally looks like the whole, especially the roof line. That's what's making me see. The roof line and the quarter window are identical to the Mustang for me.
Not to kill the mood, just something funny that just happened when I was talking about the Mercedes, the S-Class. It activated my Siri on my phone and tried to call my girlfriend. But yeah, let's see. I'm on AMG's site now. So the M133, which is the 4-cylinder, that's for the GLA. Where's the hybrid one? They don't even have the models listed anymore. Oh, there we go, models. So we want SUV, or not SUVs, the S-Class isn't an SUV. They don't even have the S-Class listed on their site. They have the E53, the EQE, and the EQS AMGs.
E53?
Yes.
Interesting. That's new, because I used to think it was the E43 and E63.
But now that what's confusing with this one, they have a CLA 35 C4.
Ugh.
That's a mouthful of a car.
Mercedes has lost its ways.
But what's weird though is on their site it still shows a C63 with a V8.
I just don't like the way they look.
No. But here's the weird thing. They have the V6 turbo in the C43, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Why does the GT43 have a 3-liter inline 6?
What?
Yeah, I don't know if y'all knew that. It has a 362 horsepower inline 6 in the AMG GT43 4-door.
Took a BMW motor.
No, it's a Mercedes-built inline 6.
Nah, I know. Just kidding.
Like, it's so weird.
Mercedes ever done an inline 6?
No, they did it way back in the day, but obviously when most companies started switching to 6s.
I don't know. That's just so out of pocket for
Mercedes, yeah. I mean, that's the last thing I heard about it not too long ago, and I was like, "What?" Because I as a German enthusiast, I love that kind of stuff. So I was just like,
kind of cool looking,
and I love inline 6s, so it's just like I was just like, "Ooh, okay." But
Yeah,
you
So
know,
the 6 actually looks kind of cool.
maybe right now there's not a C63 available.
yeah, I don't think the hybrid ones have hit the market yet, because probably because some people are crapping all over them. I don't think I've seen a single journalist say that the four-cylinder hybrid model is an actual upgrade from the outgoing 4-liter turbo cars.
Hell no.
Like, obviously, I feel like Mercedes dropped the ball on that, because I feel like if they wanted to downsize it and add hybrid tech, and be like, oh, we put stuff from our F1 program in there, just put a dang V6 in it. Like,
Nah,
Yeah.
bro, they should have just dropped the cylinder size or bore size and dropped it to like a, I don't know, make it a
well,
dang
here's the thing.
2.5 liter V8. That's all you had to do.
Well, here's the
F1.
thing.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, though, with when it comes to the cylinder count, is they have to meet, European emission regulations, which is,
Yeah.
believe it or not, even worse than it is here. Like, they're
Oh, yeah.
super
No,
strict. You
I
think
know. Yeah.
California is a cakewalk compared to Germany, and
I don't want to use the word, but it's like Germany back in the 60s and the 40s.
yeah,
So that's what
it's
European.
super strict stuff. Um, it's a cakewalk to get emissions done in California and pass with a modified car compared to Germany. So you have to meet these really strict regulations, and I don't know if it's like it is here in the States, where, like America, the reason that Dodge is discontinuing the majority of the supercharged Hemis is because the EPA was like, hey, you got to start introducing some hybrids because your competitors are doing it. You got nothing. And Dodge was like, nah, we don't need to make hybrids. We've got all these big muscle cars, and they're still selling like hotcakes. And the EPA was like, your cars suck on efficiency and are hurting the environment more, yada, yada, yada. Germany's like super strict about that, and I think that was the main reason they thought about that. But I feel like Mercedes went overboard, because they could have just done a turbo V6. They could have just taken the C43's engine and turned it up and made it sound better, and it would have been a winner.
Well, and that's one thing you can clap at BMW for. They have not gone soft when
Oh,
it
yeah.
comes to dealing with performance, but they have an electric version of every single car. A 5 Series, a 7 Series, a 3 Series. They have full electric versions of those cars.
Yep.
That's offsetting their emissions, which is good because like those people can buy it, and because that's all they want you to do. They want you to have X amount of your fleet do this, and X amount of your fleet can do this,
Right.
Yeah.
and that's all you have.
Yeah, I mean, and then you've got your Dodges fighting it, and Ford being like, "We're just going to discontinue everything, and everything's going to be electric." And I'm just like, kind of lame, but that's your motive. But I feel
Listen,
like out of all the companies right now that are on that, BMW, Porsche, obviously, I mean, they're working. I know they're electrifying more of their fleet every day, but at least the 911 is going to still have a gas engine in it for as long as time will allow it.
because
Well-
there's no substitute, baby. Porsche knows how to, like, I don't know what it is. They understand. They're like, no, we like, you're not gonna make us, because we know what sells, and they're like, I don't know. They're prioritizing. I feel like.
Well, I mean, the Taycan exists because of the regulations.
Yeah,
Like, let's be
and-
real. I feel like Porsche would have
But
never
who-
built the Taycan.
How many freaking Taycans are being bought, though? That's the thing.
Actually, a lot. I mean, you don't see them as much unless you're in a rich neighborhood, because they cost significantly more than
That's what I'm trying to
You know,
say. There's
the
not
monstrosity that is
many
Tesla.
if you actually think about it, because they are super expensive.
Yeah. But
Yeah, some of
if I had to get an EV,
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. It would be the Taycan.
buying Rivian if I have some good EV.
yeah, or Rivian. I mean, Rivian or a Taycan would be my two choices. I'll have to be caught dead to being a Tesla. I do not like Tesla. As I mentioned during our, introduction episode, we picked our favorite cars from each brand. I dogged Tesla pretty hard in that video or episode, and I still do. I don't like that brand. Granted, the
Tesla-
majority of that is my
Tesla-
disdain for EVs, but
The only
Tesla-
reason to buy a Tesla EV over the others is for the sheer fact that
they're cheap.
when a problem comes up, network wise, software wise, they are the first one to fix it.
Yeah, they're on top of the game.
Yeah.
But
They-
Tesla is just a
It's
cloud
made-
machine now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's like how the GTR was for a while. I mean, even still, I mean, people buy GTRs for clout, but it's not as bad as it used to be. Where
No, now
you,
it's like just the remnants of people are like, oh, that's my dream car, not
I'm gonna buy
the
this
yeah. I
because it
bought a
brings me YouTube views.
yeah, I bought a GTR because I have the money now because of YouTube, baby. Like, no.
Like I would buy an R35 because it's, in my opinion, more practical to like do things in,
Right,
but I would rather R33, like looks wise.
right.
But like I would buy the R35 because I feel like I could daily it,
Yeah,
and it
you still
wouldn't
have the
appear
comfort and
so bad.
everything, and then you can also just decide one day, yeah, I want to go track this car and do it,
Yeah,
and not
yeah.
even have to blink.
Right. So the next thing I want to bring up, I want to contribute a topic. So we've been talking about a lot of the luxury brands and how their performance line. We talked about Lexus, we talked about BMW
Yeah,
and Audi and Mercedes and all that kind of stuff. Cadillac, they're getting really big in the motorsport right now. And as me and Tyler, as avid F1 viewers, know, they are working with Andretti to build an F1 engine. So, do y'all think we're going to start seeing Cadillac in a few years really putting the fight more so than they already are to the big German brands?
In my opinion, the CT5V and Blackwing and CT4V and V Blackwing are the only brand new 2023 non-hypercar supercars that get me excited.
Really? Even
Yes.
even more than a 911?
Oh,
Because
yeah.
I've seen
I mean,
I've seen how you. Well, that's a supercar, but
that's a supercar.
I,
Like you talk about a daily 911 is gonna be daily driven. I get it, but let's say it's sports sedans, because we're big BMW guys and Mercedes guys. We're big German guys. None of those cars to me are as exciting as that CT5V Blackwing.
I get
Like
that.
yeah,
I
I
wouldn't
can I can
buy more
actually
competition. Like I'm gonna go buy a CT5V Blackwing that makes 650 horsepower
Yeah,
in a
you
twin
could
turbo
get it
or
with a manual.
man and manual. Yeah,
You
you
get
can. I didn't know
yeah,
you could do that.
yeah. The
Oh, sh-
CT5V is still available on a stick.
in a stick. Yes, 7-speed
so
manual.
as like I don't know very much about like I only know a little about the German cars because of you guys having mostly, well, not you, Tyler, but Ron and Jordan and Michael and whoever else having German cars, and that's why I've been kind of growing into that. But seeing how they're going now, all the German brands, and then seeing how Cadillac is just keeping true to it, yeah, I can agree. Like Cadillac is like putting up a fight and still offering, like you said, the manual now. Like that's I didn't even know that.
I think the only car
Wait,
that still offers a stick in that class is the M3, but the
Mm-hmm.
CT5V is competing against the M5.
Yeah,
yeah,
well,
because big boy
because
V8 heavy car.
your CT4V Blackwing is way more weight wise,
Yeah,
Yeah,
and it's on that twin turbo 6 cylinder that comes in that car is not to be trifled with,
right. It's a rocket. But the
and it
question,
has tunable capabilities.
right? I've seen tons of those things run tens, and I think I've seen a handful run nines now. They're fast. But the thing
Very
is,
fast.
do you guys think that Cadillac's going to be able to write a legacy in motorsport the same way that BMW did in the 80s with the M1 and, with the original E30s, and how Audi did with its dominance of Le Mans for, most of our lives, and how Porsche has it just pretty much anything it competes in, it wins. Um,
they
do y'all think that Cadillac will be able to etch the same history and reputation that the other brands have in motorsport? Because I mean, obviously, Cadillac's done this before. I mean, they did a car in the early 2000s called the LMR, and it didn't do too hot. I mean, I think it had a limited number of success, but I know it wasn't a class winner. But I mean, it was also fighting the R8 and the 908 HDI and stuff of that nature. But do y'all think that Cadillac will be able to, you know, change it up and be a real fighter in the international scene? I mean, obviously, we were all three at Petit Le Mans. We
I,
watched a Cadillac win IMSA this year.
yeah, but I almost feel like they're almost too late to the game. Like
You
they've
think so?
waited too long. Um, there's not as much as I hate to say it. I feel like no one's paying as much attention to racing as a form of what car should I buy next as it was back in the day. You know,
Yeah,
winning the races meant like, oh, this car is going to get sold a lot. Now it's it's kind of just, for fun. You only know about it if you're into cars, really.
right.
And to Cason's point there, yeah, you go to an IMSA race, you don't see a Cadillac you can go find at the dealership and buy.
No, it's literally just the
That's the
LMP3 or
problem.
whatever.
Yeah, that's the problem. There is that there's no familiarity, but will they compete with Andretti at Formula One? I don't know. Ford is also stepping back into the ring in 2024.
Right.
I think Ford is the one that's actually bringing the powerhouse and like going to probably etch anything if anything at all, because the Mustang, the Shelby GTD or whatever,
Yeah.
that's a car that you're gonna see and be like, oh, I want a Mustang now. You're
Right.
not gonna sit there. Cadillac, the only thing recognize on that LMP car that they have is the badge, or the badge that they have stickered on it.
Well, that noise is very close sounding to what some of these gnarly Cadillacs sound like. To that
Oh,
too.
no, the
That is
noise
true.
is heavenly. That
Yeah.
that one. Whenever that car would pass,
Hmm.
you knew it was the Cadillac. I didn't even have to look, and you could tell it
Yeah.
had an insane sound. But no person's just gonna be walking by a TV screen and see that car and be like, "Oh, Cadillac! Wow,
Yeah.
I kind of want a Cadillac." No, but if they see a Mustang GTD go by on the screen, they're gonna be like, "Dang, I didn't know Mustangs were so cool," and start looking at Mustangs.
And you can buy an almost identical version of the race
Yeah, you
car
can
for the
buy a
street.
Mustang
Yeah.
that looks just like it, and if you don't get, your own version of the GTD or like a Dark Horse or something, just slap a wing off of eBay onto it, and boom, you think you have a GTD.
Well,
That's the only thing.
but that's when NASCAR started. Like the rule literally was race it on Sunday,
Sell it on
drive
Monday.
on Monday. Yeah, like you could see what you could buy. Like you saw it racing. Like what was winning on Sunday sold on Mondays.
Right.
And so that's the only reason why I think Cadillac Motorsport, yeah, and the motorsport side of things, I think they can etch themselves a name, but I don't think that's going to make them any more popular when it comes to selling cars and people seeing like a recognizable brand.
I get that.
But that's the thing is like what I'm saying is them not being known to everyone as like, oh, this is why I bought a Porsche is because I saw that they won this back in there. They were just dominating. That's what etched like all those brands is like the way people could just see, like they see that car racing, they see that car driving on the road. Cadillac is going to be known only by the enthusiasts that are, and not every enthusiast is into this stuff. Only the ones like you, all of us, So that's a very small amount of people that are actually very interested.
Well, and then not
compared to
even all the people that we're friends with. It's mainly the three of us.
Right.
Yes, exactly.
Like-
Michael wouldn't even want to probably
No,
go to that.
I
so.
begged him to go to Petit Le Mans with us, and he wouldn't do it. And I know Ron said he would have, but he was going mostly for the Hyundai N booth. I think he's what he said. He wasn't going to watch the race.
And that is not a reason to go. As cool as it is to see your cars or whatever parked up at a booth, that is not the reason to go. But
Well, the Hyundai's raced Friday, so like I
Yeah.
could see him go Friday.
yeah,
watch
but we were
that-
going on Sunday. If it was to go with us,
Right.
I think next
So-
year we should. I know you talked about it, Tyler. You've got access to a camper. We should get a camper next year and just stay for the whole weekend. Just watch, go down on Friday, watch, the TCR stuff and the Hyundais and all that kind of stuff. Watch the Miata Cup, and then
that's
watch the race
watching the slower cars race is cool.
because they're a lot
Like-
closer.
The Miata
Yeah,
Cup is
and-
really cool to watch.
and there's more room for error. Like the people that you see in the faster cars and everything, like the group or
The
the
GTPs.
GTDs and all that stuff. They've been doing it over and over and over again. It's very rare they're gonna make an error, and when it is, it's
Catastrophic.
like one just goes into a wall. But like I don't know, I feel like it's a lot more rowdy when you have less, less just over prepared people in the seat.
I feel like I know someone personally. I mean, I know like 2 or 3 guys who like try out and try to qualify to be in the Miata Cup. So it's like that would be cool, definitely to see. Now I don't know if any of them made it to the final race because it's a competitive class for sure.
Oh yeah.
I would love to go see all of the races next year.
Yeah, no, that would be fun. I was gonna say, so we're actually getting pretty close to probably a good time to stop. But I did want to
Yeah,
ask one last thing. So, um, what do you guys think about like? I think about this a lot, because I watch all the history videos of like cars and car brands and stuff. It's like there's almost no way to become a new like get your name out there as a car creator unless you're just absolutely filthy rich. Like back in the day, you could just build a car and then take it to race, and then that like we were saying, that car gets known for winning races. People want to buy that car. You got your name out there. Now it's there's almost no room to create anything new. Like there's no new anything happening, and if it is, it's like
So niche.
insanely expensive cars, like hypercar level stuff, and it's like a one-off or like couple like cars that were made. How do you guys feel about that?
I'll let Tyler go first.
Yeah, it's like a lot of other different industries out there that like if you don't have this crazy checkbook that you can't compete, and I think that that's not where this was originally like meant to go. Now I think it would be better because originally it's like you got your name out there, you started racing with like what you built,
Yeah.
and then you were like, okay, now I got to do a production version of this to make it like what I built. And I think one of the things that I hated the most when it came to this style is that the history of Aston Martin, right? This so-called legendary, not so-called, it's a very legendary brand, but it's changed hands like 3 or 4 times in the last 40 years.
Right.
Yeah.
Ford's had a bite of it, and then these private owners, like this guy that was just like, I'm a billionaire, I can afford to buy it. Let me buy out Aston Martin.
Oh, the
And just-
Stroll. Yep.
And then the
Yeah,
direction
Stroll.
completely changes based
Yeah.
off of someone who doesn't even have anything to do with the history.
Exactly. So it's like, I think that the approachability needs to be somewhere lower. But you saw like DeLorean. I mean, that's an example of a guy who's like, you know what? Chevy's not really how I like want this to go. Let me get out and make my own brand. And it just takes so much to make something that's really good and to make it stick.
Like
So like
a movie franchise.
And
I think
I
it's the same,
understand.
but
I was gonna say I understand, like safety and stuff has a big part to play in that too, because you can't just go out and make a car and then try to sell it. There's a lot of regulations and
A lot of
stuff
red
now,
tape.
too. Yeah, that you have to. There's a lot of lines you have to follow, rules you have to stay to in order to be anything. And I know that has a big part to play in it, but like the fact that there's just nothing is going to be new unless it's insanely expensive now because someone insanely rich is creating it, and usually unless they were already made a while ago, it's a bunch of, like I said, one-off kind of cars, the Rimac and stuff like that.
Or
and I think that's where it's the job of the enthusiasts, the real enthusiasts, to get into these car companies and to get into these design roles and these development roles where maybe it's not this new brand, but it's a Ford or it's an Aston Martin or it's a Lamborghini. Maybe not Lamborghini, but maybe it's like some of these these brands. Like, okay, that's our brand, but this enthusiast brings that model, brings a model that's
yeah,
very
that can
very
set it
legendary.
back.
That's your best bet.
They can bring it back to what it was originally about. Not how can we make the most money, but how can we keep motorsports alive. Also, if God, I wish I was a part of Ford when that guy decided to make the Mach E when he was designing it. I would have slapped him silly, like, bro, get the hell out of here. You might as well have called it the Fiesta E. Don't even bring Mustang into the name if it's got an electric motor, bro.
what I will give Ford flack for, and this is as the owner of a former owner of one of these, why'd they put the Maverick name, which was like a sports car back in the
Yeah.
70s,
Dude,
and put on a truck that is the
Not
same
Maverick.
size that is the same dimensions within 1 inch of a 2005 Explorer Sport Track. Now, they didn't have to put the Explorer name on it. They could have just called it the Sport Track, because the majority of people who own Sport Tracks didn't call it by its full name. It was just the Sport Track. And for me, that just made no sense. Like, as a former Sport Track owner, I was just like, dude, it makes no sense why they didn't just slap the Sport Track name on it. It's the same size, and it's built the
Yeah.
exact same way. It's an SUT.
Honestly, why do they have to make another one? They already had the Ranger being made. Why do you need another small size truck?
The thing is, they're selling.
Oh, they
I mean,
are.
yeah,
I think I
but-
would buy one over a Ranger.
I would too,
Yeah.
honestly. I mean, outside of the fact that, from what I understand, that Escape-based chassis that the Maverick, the Bronco Sport, and the new Escape I'll ride on is terrible, like horribly unreliable. My girlfriend, one of her relatives, had a Bronco Sport, and it broke down, and they took it to the dealer. And like, it's gonna be months before this thing's fixed, dude. And they traded it in. Well, according to her, how the story went is his wife wandered off on her own, and he was sitting in the service department. And by the time he comes back into this, trying to find his wife, she'd already signed the papers and traded the Bronco in.
Well, and then
Um,
things. You have a Dodge Hornet.
Oh, that thing's
Okay.
terrible.
It's a muscle car back in the day.
Right.
I mean, you can say the same thing for the Lancer. I mean,
Yeah.
literally, every
The
like,
Eclipse.
that's
Oh my
one thing
goodness.
I have to say, if you're gonna make a car and try to use a sports car's name, it's like, no, stop. You're going to bring nothing but hate. What you need to do is just create a whole new car, and then give it don't give it a whole new name. Don't even bother trying to let the legends die instead of killing them with a jab to the heart. You know?
Right. Like, I think we could probably spend a whole hour on cars that have, names they shouldn't. I mean, like we were talking about the Eclipse. The Eclipse was an awesome sports car up to the 2G.
Yeah.
The first two generations were good. The rest were a little bit less desirable. Not to say they were bad, but they're less desirable than their first two generations. So they discontinue it because they're like, oh, the Eclipse isn't selling anymore. And they're like, okay, Eclipse Cross. Ta-da, SUV, we keep the Eclipse alive, right? You just completely butchered one of only 2 or 3 of Mitsubishi's best nameplates. And,
Yeah.
the Mach-E completely made the Mustang a worthless name. I mean, the Mustang was
Granted,
this...
Luckily, I was about to say, luckily the Mustang's still alive to redeem that by they were like,
the rest of
they-
it.
they brought the GTD. They were like, yeah, we know we messed up with the Mach-E. Here's the GTD, and
To make up for it.
kinda made up for it. But
And,
you know what? That's
the
a new episode.
Maverick.
Next episode.
Like the Maverick, I mean, that's a sports car. I mean, there's so many instances across the automotive world of them being like, we've got this dormant nameplate lying around. Let's bring it back. The Dart. That is a horrible, horrible misuse of a legendary name.
That should have been called the Neon, if anything.
I agree. That should have been a
That should have
second
been
generation
Neon.
Neon. I don't know
Yeah.
what
And
it is with Dodge. And there was,
It would have sold the same.
Yeah, but
You're
Told
right, but
Well, as it
it's,
already did.
it's less disrespectful.
I mean, the Dart was a monster back in the 60s.
Yeah, freaking Jake has one, or had one. His dad has one, and it's so cool.
But then you've got, it's like, it's like that meme. It's like, Mom, can I have a Dodge Dart? And they're picturing the 60s one. And it's, we have a Dodge Dart at home. And the Dodge Dart at home is a 2011 Dodge Dart SXT. Like, I loved those cars for a long time. I always thought the Dart was like the coolest thing ever, especially in rally trim with a manual and the Abarth motor.
There was one guy that went to the meets that had a really cool one. Don't get
Yeah,
me wrong. Just
but-
the fact that it was called the Dart and not a neon like SRT or something like that, they
Right.
could've made it way way less disrespectful to the old owner of the name.
Granted, they also made it horribly unreliable.
And then brought back the neon.
Right, because the Neon was significantly more popular than the Dart, and it was when it was sold in its unfortunate final outing.
Yeah.
I mean, even I don't know what it's about Dodge being afraid to reuse nameplates, because outside of the Viper, because you had 3
directly.
cars that were the exact same style, 4-cylinder, 4-door sedans, Econobox cars. You had the
Yeah.
Neon, then I think it was the Avenger, and the Caliber I think was like the hatchback version of the same
Yeah,
thing.
the Caliber, the Avenger was the boxier sedan, and then you had
And then you have the Dart. And I'm like,
the Dart,
they're the
yeah.
same car all the way through, the same philosophy. Why not just do first generation Neon in the 90s, second gen Neon, which is where the SRT4 came from, third gen
Yeah.
Neon for the Avenger and Caliber sides thing, vehicles, and then fourth generation Neon for the Dart, which is what's funny. Because if you do any research on the Dart, you know what it was sold as in Mexico? The Dodge Neon.
I did,
It was sold in Mexico as the Neon. But for
Dang.
some reason, they're like, oh, yeah, well, the Dart name is legendary from the 60s. I'm like, don't
Yeah,
slap
that's
that on a
because we're-
compact.
That's because we're Americans, brother.
That'd be like
We know the Neon. We know the Dart name.
That'd be like if Volkswagen built a Atlas-sized SUV and called it the Golf.
I could see that happening in the future.
I don't want to think about that. I'm already upset enough they're making it electric.
It'll be a
But,
crossover. So
Yeah, probably that's probably what they'll rename the Tiguan to in a few years.
Yeah. So, well, we have our next episode figured out. So we'll get to that when the time comes.
Yeah, we've been going for almost 2 hours now.
Yeah, I guess it's about the same length as our last episode. So, with that being said, anything else you guys want to say?
don't get away from the analog vehicles, guys.
Keep
Yeah.
those oldies alive.
Yeah.
Hold them dear.
And stop clapping them out, please.
Yeah.
But
No-
with that being said, what?
Hashtag in the straight piped VQs.
Whoa, that's toxic.
Oh, man. Could have been a little more broad, but okay.
Yeah.
Anyways, with all that being said, thank you everybody for watching. You can check this out on Ignite Media YouTube channel or on Jordan. Is it the same name still for SoundCloud?
The Auto Discuss podcast on SoundCloud.
Oh, that is the name for. I was talking about the channel name on SoundCloud.
No, my YouTube channel name is not on the SoundCloud account.
My man, I'm talking.
You're
Hold on one
confusing me.
What is your SoundCloud name?
It's the Auto Discuss podcast.
That is the actual official name of like the page, not just the podcast.
Yes.
Okay. So you can check it out on Ignite Media on YouTube or the Auto Discuss podcast on SoundCloud, where you can, hear both forms of it. But thank you guys for watching. Big thanks to Tyler for showing up and giving us his thoughts on, where the world's going today. Please stay tuned for the next couple of episodes and be sure to check out Blue Flag Autosports on YouTube.
All right.
All right.
And we'll
Thank you guys.
Of course.
Have me again.
For sure.